Hello and welcome to Reports from Our Growth. Our guest today joins us from the United States in Charlotte, 3,801 miles from Our Growth. Dean Smith is forging a high reputation in the States as head coach of Charlotte in North Carolina. In his first season with the Crown, he led the club to its record points total and first ever playoff win. Again this year, they're riding high in the Eastern Conference of Major League Soccer, and last month Dean signed a new contract, stretching until the end of 2027 MLS season. If Beanstalk is high in the States, it's no less so on this side of the Atlantic. In the Premier League, Brentford are enjoying much the best era in their history, while Aston Villa are flying again after a decade of drift, and the foundation of success at both those clubs was laid by Dean during his time as manager. Dean, welcome to Reports from Our Growth, and thanks for sharing some time with us. In English football, games come thick and fast. Over there, even more so.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. Enjoying it over here at the moment. 9 games we've got this month, and it's going to be a long few flights, but you become used to it in the MLS because you're travelling so often.
Yes, it's a bit more far-flung than English football, isn't it? But it was one of your more local games last night, Dean, and a good win, 4-1.
Yeah, it was. We went to extra time. They regionalised the first few rounds of the US Open Cup. So we travelled only the 2.5 hours to Raleigh as our local game against NCFC. And we managed to get there on after extra time, 4-1. So yeah, my first US Open game, and for some reason we weren't in it last year, and some of the rules over here, I'm finding my way over. I mean, one of our players couldn't play. He was suspended last night because he got 2 yellow cards 2 years ago, and I couldn't quite get my head around that.
The MLS, Dean, it must be so different from English football in so many ways. Just tell us about one or two of the big differences that you found.
Yeah, the biggest difference for me is the lack of away fans. In England, you've got the obvious banter between the teams. You've got local derbies. You've got the historic rivalries. You don't have that over here. Our club's only 4 years old. It's the 5th season we're in this season. Sometimes they talk about a rivalry with Atlanta. It's only 4.5 hours away. And I'm like, listen, it has to organically grow. You can't just make a rivalry happen. But to be honest, we actually took 3,500 fans there last year, which was brilliant. And last year, it reminded me actually of a proper UK game in terms of the atmosphere. But we're quite lucky at Charlotte. We get really, really good support. There's a really big Hispanic backing, and the atmosphere at the stadium is fantastic. I mean, we average 33,000, I think it is. And for a handful of games, we get over 50,000. So it's a good atmosphere. But yeah, the difference is the lack of away fans because of the distance to travel.
It must be quite strange, I guess, when an away team scores, pretty much silence.
Well, I was going to say my first away game last season was probably the longest one you could get. It was Vancouver away, and we actually scored the opener, and it was just silence apart from the players and my fans, and that was a full house for them because it was their first home game as well. So it's quite interesting.
Away fans in English football are quite integral to the atmosphere. Is it quite a lively atmosphere? What's the atmosphere like at matches in there?
They sure know how to put on pre-game entertainment. There was a military flyover. The woman who sings the national anthem stops after one line, and then all the crowd start singing it. And it was pretty good. And they've got the drums going behind the goal. They've got 5 different supporter sections. And our place is really good, to be honest. Some of the other places you go to, some can be a little bit quiet. Vancouver was quiet simply because it was indoors. It was in a dome. And it was a little bit more quiet. But some of the atmospheres are really good, and you can get something going. And it's not as I say, the rivalries. It's more of the support just for their team on that night.
The matters on the field, Dean, you've done really well since you went over there. I mean, you have had plenty of success, of course, in English football. I mean, how easy was that to try and replicate and build over there in a very different arena?
It was difficult to start with because, I didn't know the league. I didn't know the players. I had to do a lot of studying about it very quickly. I don't actually like this the system they use with you're allowed 3 designated players. So building your squad is a little bit different. There's a salary cap as well. Listen, I'll go into things that I didn't know about. You have a TAM player, which is a target allocated money, a GAM player, general allocated money, and designated players and under 21 initiatives. So I had to learn all about this in terms of building in terms of how we built the squad. Fortunately for me, Zoran Kaneta, who was a sporting director, he's now the general manager. He was the one who recruited me, and he's got a really good understanding. He's from Europe. He's from Serbia. Was an agent, so he's done loads of work in the UK as well. So we worked together in terms of bringing players in. I actually released my 2 designated players last year and let them go and brought in new ones. We brought in the guy Liel Abada from Celtic, and obviously this season we brought in Wilf Zaha as well. And I've got a few Brits there as well, which has been good. So Ashley Westwood, who played for Villa, I didn't know him before I came here, but he's our captain. Really, really good player, really good professional. Nathan Byrne, who was at Wolves, Swindon. And I brought Jamie Patterson over for the end of the season, who I had at Walsall as well. So, we've got some good European players as well.
Found it easy to attract the lads over from English football?
I think attracting people like Jack Grealish would be hard at the moment, but one of the biggest things probably is the fact we play on turf. Wilf's having to come to terms with that. But it's a great place to live. Charlotte is an unbelievable place. The standard of living, the type of living, the climate is really, really good. As soon as they see the stadium, they're amazed. It holds 76,000. And people look at it and go, wow, I didn't know this was here. So it's quite a funny place, Charlotte. I think if I speak to anybody all my mates at home in England and I talk about Charlotte, they go, oh, where's that? Whereas in America, you speak about Charlotte, it's like the business centre where lots of people are moving to at the moment.
Hit the ground running pretty well over there, mate, in terms of results. I mean, just tell us about your pathway out there, Dean, because of course, you did really well at a succession of clubs in English football. So how come you went to America at this stage of your career?
I'd had my dream job at Villa, obviously. All brought up an Aston Villa fan. Get the job, leave Brentford to go to Villa. We get promoted the first season, do 2.5 years in the Premier League, and loved my time there. Left on good terms. Probably one of the few managers who gets sacked, but still speaks to the owners, still speaks to a lot of the players, and has an unbelievable relationship with the fans. And then I got offered a job in the Premier League again with Norwich. It obviously didn't go as well as we would have all liked, although they've never been in a higher position than 4th than when I left. So, I was disappointed that it didn't work out, because I do believe we would have got promoted that season. But unfortunately, things just didn't quite work out. And then my son has been over here for 7 years. He came over here to college and got a degree out here. So me and my wife were coming backwards and forwards during the summer. So we ended up eventually buying a place out in South Carolina on the beach in Myrtle Beach, and used that as a holiday home whenever we came over to visit our son. And he used it for his holidays as well. And then I think it was, I met Zoran probably 2 years before the job. We were flying to Bermuda to go and see my mate Carl Lightbourne, who I played with at Walsall, and Craig Shakespeare had put me in touch with Zoran, who was then the general manager or sporting director here, and got me some tickets for the game, and we went to watch them against Red Bull, and we just kept in touch with him. And then the job came up. I'd done the 8-game stint at Leicester, and had 3 or 4 months away, and I'd had a couple of interviews, couple of chats with teams in the Championship that didn't quite fit with what my ambitions were in terms of trying to get promoted. And then the Charlotte job come up, and initially I said no. I'm okay. I'll just wait and I didn't envisage joining the MLS. But then Zoran wouldn't let go, and he said, "Listen, come and meet me at the training centre. See, you'll be surprised what you see." And I was, to be honest. I came to their training facility, and the training facility is good as some Premier League teams that I've worked at before. So I thought, do you know what? I'd have a chat with the family, see if they fancy it. We're closer to my boy. I mean, the only obviously the hardest part is leaving family members behind. Mum, father-in-law, mother-in-law, who aren't getting any younger. But we just felt it was something that we could do for the next 3-4 years and see how it goes.
You like a bit of a project, don't you? I mean, Brentford, you spent years building up, and we all know what happened there, and that was much to your credit. And the same with Villa in a way, isn't it? And if you've got a bit of time, that really helps them, and doesn't it? If you've a bit of stability and you've been build and develop things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like I'm good at helping build clubs. I mean, when I first started off at Warsaw, yeah, that's what we had to do there. I mean, I still speak to the owner, Jeff Bonser. And he ran a really tight budget, but they were always profitable each year. But it made it difficult in terms of how we brought things in. So we worked together and found a system that worked for us. And we were challenging at the top of League One at the time I left. And I then went to Brentford with Matthew Benham, who had his own ideas on how he wanted to build, and became a head coach with 2 sporting directors, which was different. But, I had a big say in recruitments, recruited Thomas Frank as well as my assistant to work with myself and Richard O'Kelly, and speak to Thomas regularly, and really pleased with the work that he's doing at Brentford, and still speak to the staff at Brentford. And I think there's only a couple of players left from my time there now, though. Rico Henry still there, who I took from Walsall as well. But really pleased to have played the small part in getting them there. And then Villa as well, obviously. New owners had come in. The club was in turmoil just before that. They could have gone under after the defeat against Fulham in the playoffs, and managed to bring in some really good players, and great to see them doing so well now. Signed Ollie Watkins twice, Ezri Konsa twice, signed Emi Martinez, who's doing so well there, and it's great to see them all doing so well, and again keeping regular touch with them.
Must take a lot of pride in that. We spoke to Chris Roach a couple of weeks ago, and he was obviously speaking very highly of a fellow former Great Bar resident, and he was recalling the Villa Derby playoff game, and he described it as a sliding doors moment, of course, in that one and all that followed. I mean, you must look with a lot of pride at what you did for your beloved club.
I do, definitely. And do you know what? The hardest part is you probably don't enjoy it as much as you should when you're there, because you're always, even when you get promoted, you're actually thinking about what next. Okay, we've got to get a new squad in for the Premier League. And, we got to the Carabao Cup final as well against Man City. And I was having a joke with John McGinn the other week, and no disrespect to our subs. I think it was Conor Hurian, Trezeguet, and Keenan Davies, who we put on for the last 20 minutes, and they put on De Bruyne, Jesus, and somebody else, and you go, wow. And to see where Aston Villa's got to now is great. But yeah, look back on my time there, real fond memories, and broke a record that had been since 1920, I think. Winning 10 games on the spin, never been done before, and we done that to get to the playoffs at Aston Villa. And I'd like to see that record go again. Well, I'm still watching and supporting them, but it's great to have that record of my own at the moment.
Sure, as a die-hard Villa fan, that would have been your dream job, wasn't it? And you ticked it off quite relatively early in your career, didn't you? So what's the future looking like for Dean Smith?
Yeah, I mean, so the future now is out here. I've just signed a new contract. The MLS is getting bigger. I'm looking forward to being out here. We've got the World Club Championships this year. We've got the World Cup the following year. So there's a lot happening in the States now. Football is getting bigger. Although they try and call it soccer, football is getting bigger. And you can see the growth. There's a lot of European, Hispanic, Latino influence all around as well. And, they're football mad, and they want it to grow. The MLS, it's 30 years old now, so it's learning all the time. And the owners, I can see the owners wanting to push to match the European league in terms of the calendar. I think it helps because our markets for signing players are on totally different schedules, and it makes it so hard and a lot more expensive. So I see them changing to the winter calendar, and I think that will help and benefit because we're playing playoff games in December when the NFL's on, and it's such a challenge to compete with that. If you're playing your playoffs in May, June, it becomes such a big thing over here.
It sounds in many ways like a great job and a great life. I guess there must be one or two things you miss about English football. The freezing cold, bitterly cold, windy, snowy nights at Bescott Stadium, for example. Can they replicate that in Major League?
They can't, unfortunately. Although, to be fair, I've had a few cold nights. I mean, whenever you go up to Toronto or Vancouver, that can be a cold one. But listen, that was part of my grounding, and I'm thankful for all them nights I had at Bescott. I loved my time there. I mean, before that, I spent 5 years as assistant manager at Leyton Orient. First year in League Two to Martin, and assistant to Martin Ling, and again, that was part of my grounding for becoming the coach I am today. I do believe that it's going to grow out over here. How long until they can compete with the big five leagues? I'm not sure. Obviously, there's no promotion, no relegation. But I think there's over 10 clubs that are worth over half a billion, dollars and pounds, which just shows you how much money there is over here as well.
You have had quite a little bit of success over the years when you've been afforded time to build. And I guess without relegation and promotion and those pressures, you do hopefully get that time in the MLS.
I always believe that you have to earn time anyway, and the only way you earn time is by winning football games. So you have to, think about that first and foremost. Go into a club, look at the squad, and find out what's the best way to go and win games first and foremost. There's no promotion and relegation here, but the pressure's no less because everything in sport over here is built around playoffs. And it's something that I probably have found out since I've been here. There's two trophies. So the Supporters' Shield is the team that's the most consistent and has the most points out of the East and West League. And then you go into the playoffs for the MLS Cup at the end. And people think I'm nuts because I'd rather win the Supporters' Shield out here because that shows the most consistency. But everybody else is about the MLS Cup because it's about the playoffs. So I didn't realize how big the playoffs was. So, I think the club got into playing for the playoff, would you believe, the season before. But they'd never hosted a playoff game. So last season we finished fifth, which meant our first playoff game would be away, but we were then hosting. And, the support we got for that was incredible. So the pressure is there you've got to finish in that top eight. Our aim is to finish top four, which gives you home advantage in the playoffs this year.
You've spoken about some of the players you brought in the recruitment. Is there a transfer window out there, or is it open season?
Yeah, no, there's a transfer window. Our window's closed now, and that's why it's so hard, and we need to probably follow the European calendar. We can agree a deal with a player to come, and then you're trying to agree to deal with the club, but they can hold you to ransom because they've got another 2 weeks of their market open at times, and it makes it really difficult to. Well, you end up paying over the odds, I think, to get players in.
You're obviously really committed to what's going on there, and your immediate and maybe medium-term future lays there. Do you think you've got a bit of unfinished business in English football as well? Can you see that happening again at some point?
Yeah, maybe. I've got to see how it goes out here first to Charlotte. I've signed a new contract, and I like to honour that. So it's going to be, at least another couple of years out here in Charlotte. But it would be nice to go back to the UK, and if I'm successful out here, then who knows what kind of club will want to come in for me. And that's why it's important for me to build that success here at this club, and prove what I can do in a different league and a different environment. It would have to be the right club for me in the right moments. But at the moment, very committed to Charlotte FC. I can't probably see myself coaching at another club out here. I mean, probably too cold up north and too hot down south for me.
I think there isn't much of out there, of course, Dean, which I know is quite close to your heart, is cricket. I mean, do you get your fix online, or you get some cricket in?
Yeah, I'll get my fix on loan online. Sorry, good to see the start Warwickshire have had first couple of county championship wins. So I grew up being a cricket fan and a Warwickshire fan, and a Bear for a long time. Me and my mates used to go up there and watch Calichuran and Jeff Humpage and them types of players, and really enjoyed it. Used to go and watch, obviously, the test matches down at Edgbaston as well. I was lucky enough when became Villa manager to get invited to the Ashes series as well in the posh seats this time. So, keep my eye out and see how it's going.
You came to speak to the Warwickshire players, I seem to recall as well, didn't you, at one point?
Yeah, I done a few talks during the COVID period. Obviously, it was hard for everybody, every sports team, and I done a talk for, I remember, Celtic. I think Lenny was in charge at the time. Done a talk for Warwickshire. I've done couple of talks for the FA as well. So yeah, it was nice, and kept in touch with Ian Bell and Wokesy, who were both big Villa fans as well. So no, it was nice to do it, but I like watching them as well.
One more thing that strikes me as we chat, one thing about football over here, of course, is that it's very covered in a lot of detail and with a lot of passion sometimes by the media. And you're constantly scrutinised and criticised, aren't you? Is that level of attention the same over there?
It's not actually. The media is not a lot easier, but I don't feel they're out to get you as much. I remember I just recalling the Villa role, and Tommy Jordan, the head of media there, probably the most important person to me at the club in terms of I don't do social media, so I was reliant on him to find out what was the most likely to come out into conversations in the next press conference, and making sure that you didn't get caught out on anything. And that advice I was given to by Sir Alex Ferguson when we got promoted at Villa. He invited me up for lunch and to give me some pointers, and he said, "Listen, yeah, your media guy's going to be your most important guy now, because you do media every couple of days. Here they're more of a local. You speak to a local group rather than many broadcasters. Our I think our broadcast is through Apple, so it's not as widespread as what it is in the UK." And he said to me, make sure that first of all you're clean shaven for every press conference, and then make sure that you know everything that's coming up. So I remember the one at Villa when the Super League was, they're talking about the formation, and because we had an early game, I was one of the first ones who had to go and talk about it. And I think that's the thing in England. You become a diplomat, you become a politician, and as well as a football manager. And that, at the end of the day, we're just trying to win football games.
I do remember an early season game one time at Walsall. I think it was the third game of the season, and you'd lost at home. And one of the local guys in the press room said, "Well, you're in a relegation battle now, Dean, after 3 games." So it's good that someone kicks you on your toes, isn't it?
Yeah, he's probably Paul Marston. I'd probably beat him at golf on the Sunday, so he was he wanted to get his own back. But yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, that I think that's the way in England it can be, and I think the saying is over there, you're never 1 or 2 games away from being under pressure in England.
Well, Dean, it's great to know that it's all going well out there for you, and hopefully it'll continue to do so. What's next on the roster? Is it in the US or over the border into Canada?
We're away at Nashville next week, on Saturday actually. So we'll travel. We'll fly there on Friday. There's an hour time difference, so there's another rarity. Then we go to Orlando away on the Wednesday. I think then we're at home against Chicago, and then away against DC United on the Tuesday after that. So the games come thick and fast this month, that's for sure.
Well, all the best with them, Dino, and thanks ever so much for joining us, and go well out there.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's a pleasure.